Hey guys, welcome to my channel. For today's video, I have my top 20 of 2020 eyeshadow palettes for you all. These are ranked in the order that I feel like they should be. Now, not all of the palettes I tried this year made the top 20 because I said this in my last video. I really got into eyeshadows this year, and I think it has a lot to do with COVID. So I ended up buying like way too many eyeshadow palettes this year and built the majority of my collection. I believe I bought 30 eyeshadow palettes in total this year. To be fair, I did not have a large collection before that. Probably had like 10 eyeshadow palettes before that, so I probably have like 40 eyeshadow palettes now. Maybe not even 10 actually. But anyways, I bought 30 this year, so these are my top 20 that I tried this year. Like I said, top 20 of 2020. I think I might actually have more than 30 just because of Ipsy, but I'm not 100% sure. But we're gonna go ahead and get into it. I don't want this video to be very long, so I'm just gonna go straight to it. So coming in at number 20 is from Juvia's Place, and this is the Nomad eyeshadow palette. I do really like this palette. Obviously, it did make top 20, and I definitely tried at least 30, maybe more than that this year, so it made the top 20, so obviously I do really like it. When I reviewed it, I really liked it then too. It is quite pigmented, which I like. I love when eyeshadow palettes are more pigmented because I don't like to deal with building them up so much unless they're like patchy, then I get annoyed, but these aren't patchy at all. I also love the artwork in this. I think it's really pretty. I always love the Juvia's Place artwork, but anyways, this is a really just kind of like nice and neutral palette. I think it's really nice for fall too. I also think that if I had a darker skin tone, I would probably like this palette more just because I feel like yellows tend to look really good on people with darker complexions. I like yellows, but they're not always like my favorite, but I do like this. I like the formula. It's very pigmented. You can definitely get some really nice neutral looks with it. Like I said, it is, I think, really nice for fall too. I really like this shimmer shade as like an all over the lid type of shade. It's very pretty. Same with the yellows. I just feel like this palette works really nicely. It's easy to work with. If you're someone who's like just getting into makeup too, I feel like Juvia's Place has a really easy to work with formula. So I feel like this would be a good one, especially if you are newer to makeup, because it's more on the neutral side too. So you're like less likely to, you know, mess up. So I would definitely recommend this one. And it is, I think, $15. Very affordable. I do really like it, but it is coming in at number 20 in part because of the color story and just because yellows aren't necessarily my favorite. Coming in at number 19 is the Venice Fling palette by Sarian and Estate Causemetics. I got this in my Ipsy a while ago. I think it was the first month that they had like you choose 3, and I think this eyeshadow palette is quite beautiful. I really like the colors. I haven't been grabbing for it a lot lately, which I think is in part just because this is to me more of like a summery palette. It's not necessarily something I'd wear in the fall. I think the pan sizes in this are like really nice. They kind of remind me a little bit of Juvia's Place in the pan sizes, but I think the colors are very beautiful. I love the pop of purple in there. I think that looks stunning. I love the gold and the reds. I think they're very pretty shades. I just haven't been reaching for this as much as I would want to. If you're a big fan of Sarian, you'll probably really like this palette, or like really just want it because it's Sarian's. My only complaint, and this is my complaint with any palette that does this, is the dark shimmer shade. I freaking hate dark shimmer shades because I always feel like they never get used. I feel like every time I get a dark shimmer shade, the only time I use it is in the video, and that is exactly what this has been. I have worn this palette since, but I have not used this shade like whatsoever. For me, that's like my only complaint with this palette, is that I don't like that it has that. But I think the formula is really nice, very blendable, and I do really like the packaging as well. I think it's super pretty. Coming in at number 18 are the e.l.f. Bite Size eyeshadow palettes. I mentioned this in my first video I did about my eyeshadow palettes, which you're going to see if you watch that video at all. The ranking has very much changed. These were pretty high up at the time, but they've gone down. I still really like them. I think they're definitely worth $3. If you're looking for like a nice cheap eyeshadow palette, these are definitely great. They're worth it. I picked these 3 to show because these are my 3 favorite shades that I have. I have 6 of them. If I were to go back in time and like not be as hyped up about these palettes, I probably would not have bought the Carnival Candy one or the Berries one, just because I never grab for those ones, I've learned. But these ones I do grab for quite a bit. The Rose Water one might be my favorite one, or the Hot Jalapeno. They're both really great. The Hot Jalapeno I was wearing a ton during the spring and summer because I do really like green and yellow eyeshadow. I think it looks really pretty on the eyes, and I like combining them. The pink one, I love pink if you've been here for any amount of time, you may know I love pink eyeshadow. So that's why I like this one. And the cream and sugar one I think is really good for whenever I don't want to think about what I'm putting on my face. Like this is great because you can make a super simple look and leave. That's why I like this one so much, because it's just easy to work with, easy to come up with a look. You're one and done, you're gone. Goodbye. These are only $3, so it's a really great value. I have them ranked here because even though I really like them, I've definitely stopped using them as much as I was using them at one point. I still really like them, obviously, and I think they're an amazing value, but there are just other formulas I like a little bit better and other palettes I have that I just like better. Coming in at number 17 is the Violet Voss Coral Pop Eyeshadow Palette. I am shocked that this is as high as it is, but I really like this palette. It's super cute. I like that it's very portable. I kind of like that you could just like throw this in. It would be super easy to touch up throughout the day if you wanted to, just saying. And I really like the Coral Pop shade in here. I think it's super pretty. I like the champagne shade. And I think I said this at some point in life, I don't remember what video, but I was really impressed with the longevity this formula had, because I know when I got the Essentials palette back in the day when I did BoxyCharm, I liked it a lot. It was like my first like higher end palette, so I like kind of hyped it up in my head. And then as I tried out more eyeshadow palettes, I realized it didn't stick to my eyes as well throughout the day and it would kind of get creased, which don't get me wrong, I have lots of eyeshadow palettes that do that because I do have more hooded eyes, but this doesn't do that. So I don't know why that is. I don't know if they like changed the formula a little bit or something, or it's just like the colors in this one are so different from that one that maybe that's why. But this formula I do like better than the one that's in the Essentials palette. I don't hate the Essentials palette, but I think this one's just a little bit better. And I do like that it's small, compact. It is very much a one look palette in my opinion. I don't think there's a lot of looks you can create with this, but if you're looking for something simple, kind of on the go, I think this is a great option. Coming in at number 16 is this from Huda Beauty, and this is the Topaz Obsessions palette. I don't remember if this was featured in a haul or not, because I bought a lot of makeup at one point, like after my last haul video, and I was gonna film another one and I just ran out of time, so it could be in that video, it could not be in that video. I don't remember, but this is what it looks like. I do really like the Huda Beauty formula. I think it works really well. I got this off of Ipsy, I'm pretty sure. The only reason this is ranked here is just because it's orange and I don't wear orange eyeshadow a ton. I did pay for it and I did pick it out, but I just don't wear orange eyeshadow a ton, so that's mostly why it's here. I think the formula is great. I think it looks really pretty on the eyes. I think this is also great for the fall. It's currently winter though. I haven't been wearing it as much recently, but I do like it and I think it is very pretty. It's maybe not my favorite Huda Beauty palette, but I think again, that is mostly just because of the color story. It really doesn't have so much to do with the formula, because I know I like the formula and I like this palette, but I just don't gravitate towards it as much because it has orange tones, which is my fault. At number 15, I have the Laura Sanchez Moods palette. So I got this year and I really like it. First of all, I love the packaging. Like I love that that's the packaging. I think that's super cool. So this is what the palette looks like. I do love that this comes with a large mirror because I do use these mirrors. I hate the brush. I hate every time palettes come with brushes unless it's a Sigma one. The Sigma ones are good, but like other than that, I freaking hate when I get brushes and palettes. And I do really like this palette. The main reason I'm sticking it here is just because while I like it, I think that the color story in this is like sometimes a little bit difficult to think of, because it's not like the most like complementary colors, because it's very just like sort of rainbow-esque in a way. But I do really like the shimmer shades. They're super pigmented. They work really, really well. The mattes also work very well. There are definitely different looks you can do with it because of all the colors in the palette. I just kind of wish that there was like, instead of these highlighters, I almost wish instead of highlighters, we just had like another row of eyeshadows. Maybe you could have like these as almost eyeshadow shades, like 2 of them, and then like 2 mattes. Like I think then I would use this palette a little bit more. I do think it's really pretty. I also think I'll use this more come spring and summer, because these are definitely tones I wear more in the spring and summer, but I do like it. I do think it's really pretty. I also love the holographic highlighter. If you guys can see that, it like shifts purple. Super pretty. I use that on the eyes a lot, but I also have used it as a highlighter before, and I do overall really enjoy the palette. The next palette at number 14 is the other Juvia's Place palette that I bought this year, and this is the Mauves palette. Again, I do really like this one. This one I wear more just because of the tones in it. Again, like I said before, I love pink eyeshadows, so I wear this one a lot more. Also love the artwork. I do like it. I'm not the biggest fan of pressed glitters. I mean, obviously I knew that shade was in there when I bought it, but I don't tend to use that shade as much because I'm just not a huge fan of pressed glitters. But I definitely think this is a really pretty palette. It is only 6 shades, so you're not gonna have like a super diverse array of looks, but I definitely think you could get like 2 or 3 looks out of this just with the different shades in it. And I think it's overall just a really pretty palette and like very aesthetically pleasing to look at. I don't know if that's just me, but I feel like it is like a nice thing to look at. And this palette is $14, so it is very reasonably priced. And kind of like I said with the Nomad palette, I always think that Juvia's Place would be like a really good starting point for a lot of people because I do find their shades personally easy to work with. They are more pigmented, but I don't think they're overly pigmented. At number 13, I have the IBY Enlightened Eyeshadow Palette. This was my favorite eyeshadow palette for a while if you watched my last video. I still stand by that this eyeshadow palette is a beautiful palette. I think I will use it more when spring comes. I haven't been using it as much lately because I don't wear these during the fall or winter. But I definitely think the color story in this is really pretty. You get like your neutrals, your pops of color. Very, very pretty, very user-friendly as well. This palette is very reasonably priced too. I want to say this is like, I don't even know if it's 30 bucks. Like it's pretty reasonably priced and you get a really good, in my opinion, eyeshadow formula out of it. Very pigmented, very creamy, very smooth. I really like the palette. I think it works really well. I haven't been using it as much, which is kind of one of the reasons I have it here, but I still very much like it and I think that it works really well. Hopefully I'll get into it again more when spring comes. Just right now I haven't been using it a ton, but I definitely think it's very pretty. And I also really like the formula. Like I mentioned, there are just some formulas I've tried since this palette that I like a little bit better, but I still really like this palette. I think it's very beautiful and I would definitely recommend trying it out. Again, I also feel like this would be good for someone who is starting out makeup or someone who just likes more neutral eye looks and then likes to throw a pop of color in like underneath the eyes or something. I feel like this would be a really good palette for that as well. Coming in at number 12 is this from Pat McGrath. This is her like mini Sublime palette, I think is what it's called. Yeah, I really like this palette. Now the packaging on it is a little bit cheaper, but this is not an expensive palette. I don't remember how much it is, but it's not super expensive. You get 5 shades in it. The reason this is ranked where it is simply because it's all shimmer shades. And I usually pair this with a different palette. I pretty much never use this alone. I always pair it with a different palette, which is why I have it ranked here. But I also have it ranked here because this is what like made me actually want to buy a bigger Pat McGrath palette. Now I still don't have a $125 one and I won't have a $125 one unless I get a ton of gift cards. But I think this palette is very beautiful. I love the red duochrome shade. It kind of shifts to like a coppery color. It's very beautiful. The gold is gorgeous. Like I just feel like this is what made me go, this is going to be worth the money. Because in my opinion, not to get too on Natasha Denona, because I'm going to talk about Natasha Denona in a little bit, but in my opinion, I feel like Pat McGrath's shimmer formula shades, especially the transformative shades, make it worth the money to me. Whereas I look at someone who's a comparable price point like Natasha Denona and I just don't feel that same way. This is really what got me into I gotta get a bigger palette from Pat McGrath, and if I get enough gift cards one day, maybe I'll get a $125 one. Coming in at number 11 is from Ace Beauté. This is the Vintage Dawn palette. First of all, I think the packaging is beautiful. It's very like 1920s-esque and the mirror is also cute. So this was in my very last BoxyCharm because I canceled BoxyCharm I think in January of this year and I'm pretty sure that's what this palette came in. And I do really like the palette. I think that works really well. I initially had this ranked a little bit lower when I was doing my ranking video, but I moved it up because one, I've been grabbing for it a lot more, which is always a reason that I move things up, but also I just feel like the shades are just so nice. They're so pigmented, very creamy, and I've kind of like rediscovered it in a way. So I really like this palette. I think it's just a really beautiful palette, and I also love that it's sleek. Because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but I hate palettes that are bulky and I won't buy them. I don't care how good the formula is. I will not buy a palette if it has bulky packaging because I am limited in my space and I'm not going to buy a palette that's going to take up a lot of space. It's one of the reasons I don't really buy from like Storybook Cosmetics, even though I think they have really cute stuff. I won't buy it because I can't stand how bulky the packaging is. And I love that this is thin and easy to store. So that is one of the reasons why I also love this palette. I've come to realize how important that is to me this year when it comes to palettes. I can't stand it if they're bulky. It annoys me to absolutely no end. Now we're on to top 10. So coming in at number 10 is the Wander Beauty Wanderess palette. I love this palette. So here's the thing. Okay, I shouldn't say I love this palette because it is a tad bit neutral for me, but the Wander Beauty formula is one of the best formulas I have honestly worked with for my eyes because it is legitimately one of the only formulas I can think of that when I put it on, it does not crease. Like at all. I always, no matter what, have some creasing in my eyeshadows. Like, even if it's just a little bit, like certain palettes, I don't have it as much. There's gonna be a palette I talk about in a little bit that I don't really have it as much with that palette, and I don't have like really a lot transfer with certain palettes, but this one has none of it. Like, I don't have transfer, I don't have creasing. I don't know what is in this formula that makes it do that, but I love it for that reason. The reason it's at number 10 is simply because, one, I don't grab for it as much because it is on the more neutral side, and two, I kind of feel as though you can't create a lot of looks with it. But the formula on the Wander Beauty eyeshadows I personally love, because like I said, I cannot believe that I can wear this all day and not have creasing and not have transfer. I always have transfer up and I always have creasing, and I don't with this one. There are ones that I can go a while without it, but like I have yet to wear this palette to a point that I see creasing. So this one is a big yes for me. Coming in at number 9 is what I kind of believe is like one of the most underrated palettes this year. Have it on my eyes today. It's the KVD Vegan Beauty Edge of Reality eyeshadow palette. This was their holiday collection, and I think it's great. First of all, I love the packaging. Like, I think they're doing a good job at kind of differentiating themselves without Kat Von D, but also keeping it sort of within the aesthetic. And I like that it's also recyclable. As you can see, you can remove this completely when you finish it, which I really like. I'm always for like something that's a little bit more environmentally friendly if I can help it. But I think the colors are beautiful. Like I said, I have this on. I think I have this in the crease. I have this also at the outer edge. This kind of at the outer edge. I have this at the outer edge, like the outer edge. This is the blue that's in the inner part. I also have on this purple shade like right here. And then the one that's kind of the main one that you're probably seeing mostly on the lid is this one. This is a transformative shade. This one has, I think, 3 transformative shades in it. I believe it is this purple one right here that's transformative, this one, and I think that's it. I think those are the only 3. I love transformative shades. I think they're super cool and I always like them. Transformative shade will always make it slightly more worth it to me, but this palette is so good and I never hear anyone talk about it. I'm like, man, this palette is really good. The reason I put it here is honestly mostly because the reason I kind of feel like this palette might not be doing as well, besides people still like thinking Kat Von D, is because the color story in this is not necessarily the easiest thing to work with. And if I were to make a change to it, I would make one of the shimmer shades a matte shade and I would make it a dark matte shade, darker than this, because it is a little bit hard to build the depth I want sometimes with these looks. But overall, I really like the palette. It works really well. It lasts very nicely on my eyes. I think it looks really pretty. It gives you just a nice shimmery look, and I think it's also great for the holidays, which is why it was a holiday palette, but I really like it and I never hear anyone talk about it, so I just feel like this palette is so underrated, but it's really good. Coming in at number 8 is from LA Splash Causemetics, and this is their Magic eyeshadow palette. I got this in Glossy Box, I don't remember, November, I think, but it is so pretty. I love the packaging. I think that's super cute, and I love the colors in it. Normally I am not a neutral person, but these metallic shades are like freaking gorgeous. They stay on the eyes really nicely too. I do want to note that because they do stay on my eyes pretty well, but they're just so beautiful and they're very pigmented. They just look really pretty, very blendable. The black shade is great. It's one of my favorite black shades I've used, and black is a really hard color. So it's a great palette. I think it looks really nice. It definitely, in my opinion, is like a little bit more of like on the edgy side of neutrals, because it's not like a basic neutral palette. It's got those really pretty metallics in there and I love them, and I just feel like they really just make the look just so much better, and they're very pretty. Again, I love the black, and overall I didn't expect to like this palette as much as I do, but it is a great palette and I would recommend it. I have no idea how much it costs, but it's great. It's fantastic. Next is the Pure Raw Beauty Christie collab palette. I didn't get her other collab palette this year. I did not need it, but I did get the Pure one. This was a journey to get, but I'm not going to relive that. So anyways, so you have the more colorful side of the palette. You also have the more neutral side of the palette. Both of them have mirrors on each side, and I just love the duality of this palette. I think it's awesome, especially when we get to travel again, because you get the color and you get the neutrals. And for me, that's great because sometimes I will go for a more neutral look and sometimes I'll go for more of a colorful look. I can get both of them. This is super easy to pack. It's 18 shades. I think it's just a really nice travel palette. I like that she's got mirrors on both sides, super convenient. And I think she did a really good job at picking the shades too. I like that she didn't pick just like all browns or like really traditional neutral palettes. I like that you have some of the more pops of color on the neutral side, and I also love the pops of color on this side. I think they're super pretty. My only real complaint with this palette is I do wish there were more shimmer shades, but I know she likes mattes more, which is why this has so many mattes. But as someone who likes shimmers, I like wish there was like one more shimmer shade on each side, just like a personal preference of mine. But overall, I really like the palette and I think it performs very well, easy to blend. Even the purple is easy to work with. Not as easy as some of the other shades, but easy for a purple. So I think they did a really great job, and I think Pure did a great job with this formula too. Coming in at number 6 is the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. I'm gonna be honest, this is literally the only thing I've tried from Natasha Denona that I have felt like my money was worth it. Like, I honestly do think this palette is worth $65. It is very good quality. I like the shade range in it. I like all the shades in it. I love working with them. I have 4 other items from Natasha Denona. I have 2 other palettes. One's a mini, one's a $48 one. I have a blush and I have a lipstick. And the blush isn't bad. I don't mind the blush. The others, but this I like. So I do really like this. I do think it's very pretty. I honestly personally feel as though with Natasha Denona that her mattes are really, really good. Like, I feel like her mattes are actually better than her shimmers in my opinion. I think they blend out really easily and they're like super pigmented. Like, her metallics and shimmers are fine. I don't know. To me, they're nothing spectacular. I feel like her mattes are much better, just in my personal opinion. I like the palette. I think it works really well. I've heard that the other mid-sized palettes are also really good. I've obviously not tried them, and I probably won't, to be completely honest, because I feel fine just having one Natasha Denona palette. I have no need to buy any more. I feel good on this. I like this, and I'm happy I have it. I think it's a really nice palette. I love the colors that are in it. I love the looks I've created with it. I've used this palette a lot since I bought it. If you check my description boxes and see what I'm wearing, I know I've worn this palette a lot. So it is a really great palette. I would definitely recommend it. If you are thinking about getting a Natasha Denona one, this is a really good one if you like the color story. Like I said, I've also heard that the other mid-sized palettes are really good too. So I do really like this one, and I definitely think it was worth my money. Coming in at number 5 is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam 2 palette. I really like this because first of all, I love the packaging. Second of all, I think that this palette is very nicely curated. I didn't buy the original Soft Glam because it was big and I'm not into bigger neutral palettes, but this one is very small and very curated, and I liked it a little bit more. I've actually worn this palette quite a bit since I bought it, like way more than I thought I would, honestly, but I think it's really pretty. I love the 2 shimmer shades in it. They're quite gorgeous. I do wish that there was at least one other shimmer shade in here, just like a personal preference of mine. But overall, I think the palette's really pretty. I like that I can create really quick looks with it. It doesn't take a lot of thought process for me to create looks with it, which is always a huge deal whenever I have to either get on a Zoom call or go to my other job. So I do really like this. I think it's really cute and pretty, and I like that it is just nicely curated and small. Just my personal preference. It hits all of the right notes for me. Coming in at number 4 is the Pat McGrath Rose Decadence palette. I really like this palette. I have worn this quite a bit since I bought it. I also use the mirror in this all the time. But this is just 6 shades. Again, like I said before, with Natasha Denona, I like the palette I bought from her. I like it. I think it works well. It was worth my money. I do like it. I just feel like the Pat McGrath formula is just my personal preference of formula. I like Natasha Denona's mattes better, but I like the transformative shades and Pat McGrath and the shimmer shades I just think are better in my opinion. Again, I feel like this is worth the $65 even though it is only 6 shades because of those shimmery transformative shades you get. They're very unique. They're unlike anything I feel like I've used before, and that's one of the reasons I just love this palette so much. This isn't like, obviously this is more of like a one look palette, which is kind of where I have it ranked here, but I still really like it, and I love pink eyeshadow, so it's always going to be a little bit ahead when it's got pink in it. Just saying. Coming in at number 3 are the Pure Trolls collab palettes. If you told me I was gonna rank these palettes like in my top 3, I would not have believed you, but they work so well. So I love all these palettes. I actually started off with this one initially. This is the Techno one. I currently use this one the least just because I don't wear blues and greens a lot during the winter for whatever reason, although I'm wearing blue today, so whatever. But I do really like this one. This one has like some really pretty metallics in it. They're super pigmented, super blendable, very creamy. They stay on the eyes really nicely. Just overall really good palettes. I also have the Pop one, which is the all pink one, which I also really like because it's all pink, but it's very pretty, and I like that you have like this corally shade in it too. I think that's really cute. The Classical palette might be the one I actually use the most, surprisingly, but I love gold shades specifically, and gold is just like one of my favorite shades to put all over the lid. So I think that's why I end up reaching for this one so much, and because when I do have to go to my retail job, I do need something that is a little bit more on the neutral side, so this is really great for that. And I also have the Rock palette, which was the most recent edition. I got it, did I get it at TJ Maxx? I don't remember where I got it, but I like using this to go with more of like a smoky kind of like rocker chick look. I really like this palette for that. I think the silver shades in it are just gorgeous on the eyes. I'm not always a huge fan of like cooler tones, which I wouldn't even say this is really cooler tone because I don't feel like it is, but I'm not always one to go for like grays and blacks, but this one is really gorgeous and I do like using it. This is more of like a statement eye for me because normally I'll take the red and kind of do something like creative with it, but I do like this. Again, I think the classical one is probably the one I have actually used the most, but I like all four of them. They all have a great formula. All the ones I've tried, they work really well, they blend really nicely, and they stay on the eyes nicely as well. Coming in at number 2 is one of my most recent purchases that I also did not feature on the channel. This is from Causemetics, and this is their Cutie palette in Platinum. So this was the palette that was my cutoff for palettes that I would include in this year. I have 2 other palettes that I very recently got that are not going to be included when I talk about like palettes next year, just because this was the only one I could think of that I purchased recently that I actually had enough time to try out to decide how I felt about it. And I love this palette. So first of all, it is very cool toned, which I normally don't go for cool tones, but this silver shade is like everything. It is gorgeous. It looks beautiful on the eyes. I love the looks I've been able to create with this. I think it's really, really pretty. I love the gold. I love the bronze color here. This is Rich, Darling, Priceless, and what is this? Luxuriance. I don't know if I said that right, but those 3 shades particularly, I really, really enjoy. I think the mattes in here, even though there's only 2 mattes, I like the 2 mattes that are in here and I don't feel the need for more mattes. If anything, I would say like maybe a black shade, but I can pull a black shade if I really want it. I think the colors are just beautiful. This formula is great. I love the formula in this eyeshadow palette. I think it works beautifully. It stays on, it looks great. It's very pigmented, very creamy. So definitely up there. I use this one a lot. So I really like it. I think it's really pretty and I feel like it's gonna like look really nice as like a New Year's palette, you know? Silver, yeah, that's what I'm going with. But super cute, really like it. I also really like the packaging. I think the packaging is super cute as well. And my number 1 eyeshadow palette for 2020 is the Sigma Untamed palette. This is my favorite eyeshadow palette of 2020. I do wear this one quite a bit, and I haven't been wearing it as much lately, but I still wear it a lot. I like that you get a Sigma brush. You get 2, and they actually are good brushes, so that's like chill. And I love the shades in them. I feel like this palette is both diverse, but also like easy to find looks with, which I really like. You can create a bunch of different looks for this, but it's not too much. It's not overwhelming amount of eyeshadow. The colors, I think they did a really good job on the color story of it. This definitely leans more on the fall side, but I could definitely still see using this in the spring too. Maybe not so much the summer, but I just feel like the tones in this are really beautiful. And I honestly think if you are someone who likes these type of tones, you might be able to get away with wearing this all year round. For me, this will probably not be so much a summer palette, but like every other time of year palette. And I just really like it. The black shade in this does work really well. And overall, I just think this is a really beautiful palette. Also love the packaging, super cool with the velvet. So this is my favorite palette of the year. I have used this palette so much. I have definitely used it more than any other eyeshadow palette I've shown you guys today. It's such a good palette. It's really solid. Just, it's something that if I don't know what to do, this is the palette I'm gonna go for because I will be able to find a look with this palette and I know that it's gonna look good. So that was all of my eyeshadow palettes. I need a drink of water after all this talking. So let me know down in the comments below what you guys thought of my ranking, and also let me know what some of your favorite eyeshadow palettes you tried this year are. I would love to hear about it. Like I said, I love this one. This was by far, I knew this was gonna be my number 1 pick before I ever made the video because it's just such a good palette. And I did try some really amazing formulas this year, but that one was like the most surprising to me as to how much I liked it, and I just use it so much. So like I said, let me know all your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, and let me know some of your favorites. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up before you go, and don't forget to click that subscribe button. That is all for today, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good one. Bye!